Okay. Elimination. The goal is to eliminate. The goal is get rid of, right? Get rid of your variable somewhere. What? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not even writing anything down yet. I'm just talking you through it. So with elimination, if we're trying to get rid of a variable, in the first lesson on Friday, we said you want opposite coefficients. We want 3 and -3 in front of our x, or we want 2 and -2 in front of our y. As long as you have opposite coefficients, you can just add your two equations together and it will automatically eliminate something. Today, you're not going to have that, but we still want that. Okay, so the goal today is you're going to change one of your whole equations so that you get to that point of having opposites. Okay, so this says, what if there is no common, or we would say no opposite coefficients, because we want opposite coefficients the way we've been doing it. You are going to multiply one or both equations by some number to create opposite coefficients. Okay, remind me what a coefficient is. What? The what? It's the number in front of your variable, right? So we want those to be opposites of each other so that we can add the two equations together. Okay, so multiply one or both equations by some number, and that number is kind of the number of your choosing, but there will be some easiest versions of it, okay? So that we can create opposites. We want the numbers in front to be opposites of each other. Not for every variable, but just for one variable. So either your x coefficients will be 2 and -2, or your y coefficients will be 5 and -5, okay? We want opposite coefficients somewhere, not everywhere, okay? Okay, so take a look at this first example with me. Does anyone need more time writing this down? Can I zoom in? You what? Here. Like you're not in touch. They won't open? Can you restart your iPhone?
I did every single thing. I even deleted the thing, let it come back and the waiting. That's pretty cool.
And you've completely closed out of your notability and tried to open it, and you've shut down your iPad completely?
Yeah, pretty much. Did all that 2 days ago.
Okay, we'll do that again right now. Restart your whole iPad, and then I'll give you my notes in a little bit if you don't get any of it right now. Okay, so take a look at this first one. So you have x plus 3y. You don't need to go over this. I just am going to give you colors to refer to. And then you have 2x minus 7y equals -1, okay? Look at your coefficients. What is your coefficient for x in that purple equation? 1, right? There would be an imaginary 1 right there. What's your coefficient to the y? 3. Okay, so you have a coefficient of 1 and a coefficient of 3 in your first equation. What's the coefficient to x in the second equation? That's a 2, and the coefficient to y is a -7. So ignore your y's for now. Your x's, you have a 1 and a 2. Are those opposites? No. Okay, ignore your x's. Your y's have a 3 and a -7. Are those opposites? No. One's positive, one's negative, but they're not the same number. Remember, if we want to add them together, we want it to equal 0. So they have to be 7 and -7, or 3 and -3. These are not, okay? So what that means is we have a little bit of work to do to get it to a place where we can do that. Now, the question you ask yourself is there an easy place to do that? Well, do you think it's easier to make a 1 become a 2 or to make a 3 become a 7 with multiplication? A 1 to become a 2. What would you have to multiply 1 by to make it a 2? 2, okay? Now, we want them to be opposites. So 2 and 2 is okay, but they're not opposites. How could I make it an opposite? Multiply by what? A -2. So your best bet on this problem is to take this whole top equation and multiply it by -2. And that every piece of it, okay? All 3 parts. So I'm going to go -2 times this, -2 times that, -2 times that. And I'm just going to rewrite that. You don't have to rewrite this yet. I'm just going to rewrite it here so you see what I'm talking about. Okay, if this is my setup, this is going to become a -2x. What's the next part going to be? -6y equals, what's this? -12, okay? So now you have that purple equation is -2x minus 6y equals -12. Your other equation, the green one, you're just going to rewrite exactly how it was right below it. Okay, now this should look really familiar. This is what you did on Friday. Now we have opposite coefficients and we can just add them together. So if we're going to add these, what's -2x plus 2x? 0. We eliminated it. It's gone. Get out, right? What's -6y plus -7y? What is it? -13y, okay? And again, you guys have calculators. I will never take your calculator away. You can use your calculator every time on that. So plug in -6 plus -7 and it will tell you -13, okay? So -13y. What's -12 plus -1? -13. So you're here. Your x is gone. We have eliminated. What's your next step? We're going to divide by a -13 on both, and we get y equals 1. Okay, now the lovely thing about this one is you now have 3 equations that you could choose from to plug it into. Yeah, will you put your phone up here? So I would plug it into that original like purpley colored one, but you don't have to. You can plug it to into any of the equations you have. I'm going to go back up to this one. So I'm going to take this y and I'm going to drop it in here. So it's going to be x plus 3 times 1 equals 6. Okay, so x plus 3 equals 6. We're going to take away the 3 and x equals 3. So your answer, now be careful, we solved for y first. So my answer as a point would be what? 3, 1, because x was 3 and y was 1. How'd we do? Does that make sense? So it's a little more work than yesterday or Friday, but not a crazy amount more, right? We're just trying to find opposite coefficients. What is a coefficient? The number in front of the variable. What are opposites in math? Positive and negative. So we're trying to make them opposites, okay? Okay, so look at number 2. Do we have opposite coefficients right now? We have a 9 and a 2. Are those opposites? No. We have a 3 and a 1. Are those opposites? No. Okay, so we want to try to make opposites. Does anyone think they see what would be the easiest one to multiply? The top one or the bottom one? Actually, let's vote. Raise your hand if you think I would do best to multiply my top equation. Okay, raise your hand if you think it would be best to multiply the bottom equation by something. Correct. Okay, so we're going to multiply the bottom equation. Who thinks they would prefer to multiply so that the x's are opposites? Who thinks they would multiply so that the y's are opposites? The rest of you are not quite sure yet. Both work, but I'll tell you the x's are not as pretty because you'd have to multiply by a decimal. 4.5 would get you from 2 to 9, okay? Your y's are going to be easier. Nick?
Can I just go to the library real quick?
To see if he can help you with it? Yeah. Okay, so if we have our y's then, what are we going to multiply this bottom equation by to make it the opposite of 3y? Because right now this is a 1. So we got to multiply by what? -3. Do you see that? If I multiply this by -3, then I get a -3y. But you cannot just multiply the y. You have to multiply everything. Okay, so let's multiply everything. I like to do this because I like to see them stacked on top of each other the whole way through. So I'm going to just copy this little chunk, that first equation, and just move it over. So you can copy and paste it, or you may rewrite it. That means my bottom equation then, I'm going to go -3 times 2x is a -6x. I'm going to go -3 times 1y is a -3y. And then -3 times 5. And I'll tell you right now, the step that most people forget on this is they see the equal sign and they do it to these two, but they forget to do it to the one on the other side of the equal sign. Make sure you do all 3 parts, okay? So when we do that, we get a -15. Can you tell me your next step? To do what? I just didn't hear what you said.
Oh, yeah.
Eliminate instead of take away. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, eliminate what?
The positive and the negative.
Okay, so how do we eliminate the y's right now? Add them, right? We add our 2 equations fully together. So put a big equal sign here. Put a big plus sign so you remember you're adding together. Okay, and now you add. And again, please use your calculator. There is no shame in using the calculator to do basic math like this. It just keeps you from making silly little mental mistakes. That's totally fine. 9x plus a -6x is what? So you type in 9 plus -6. Do you know where the negative is on that calculator? Is it next to 0? Yeah, right next to 0. So this would be 3x, right? 9x plus a -6x is 3x. This is 0. Add those together, it goes away. So we eliminated the y. What's 12 plus a -15? -3. So you get 3x equals -3. Then you divide by 3, and you get what? -1, right?
Yeah, negative.
Okay, where can you plug that -1 in? The bottom equation, the top equation, or the bottom equation that you just created too. Any of these 3, 1, 2, 3, they all work. I usually try to pick the one that has small numbers. So I'm going to plug it into this bottom equation. So it'll be 2 times -1 plus y equals 5. So that's -2 plus y equals 5. And then we're going to add 2. So y equals 7. So you get -1, 7 as your answer. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to try number 3. I want you to try number 3. And then if you finish number 3, take a look at number 8. Number 8 is another step, but I want you to see if you can figure it out. So start with number 3. If you finish 3, go on to number. Forgot to start recording again. Okay, so now that we've multiplied the 4, add them together. 12x plus 5x is 17x. This becomes 0. -4y plus 4y is 0, so that doesn't need to get written down. And then 56 plus 12 is 68. What's your next move? Divide. Yeah, we're going to divide by 17. And we get x equals 4. Okay? Then once you have your x, you can plug that back in wherever you want to plug it in to one of the equations we've been working with. Where did you plug it in? Any preference? Top equation or bottom equation? Top. Okay, so if we take this 4 and we plug it in here, it would be 3 times 4 minus y equals 14. So that's 12 minus y equals 14. We're going to take away the 12. Did you get it fixed?
I guess so.
Yeah? Okay. So negative y equals 2. And then we're going to divide that or multiply that by negative 1. So y will equal a negative 2. Okay, that means your answer is 4, negative 2. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay, do you need to stand up and cross your midline? Because I got a new thing for you. Stand up, cross your midline, move your bodies, and then go to number 8. Stand up. Go to number 8 here, and look at those numbers. So your x's, you have a 3 and a 5. Does a 3 multiply nicely to get you to 5? It really doesn't, right? So then you look at the other one. Well, maybe we have a better chance with the y's. Does a 3 multiply nicely to get you a 4? It really doesn't. It's very unfortunate. So instead, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply both of your equations to get them to be opposites of each other. So take a look at this. There is no right answer here. There are multiple right answers here. There's some better answers than others because you'll get smaller numbers, but there is no like, it has to be this, okay? So what you do is you look at your coefficients, 3 and 5, 3 and 4. Which ones do you want to try to make the same number? 3 and 4?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I would pick, but you don't have to. 3 and 5 is just fine. It's not at all wrong. If I want 3y and 4y to become opposite numbers, what common multiple do they share? 3 can multiply to become what number? And 4 can multiply to become what number? 12. Okay? So if we can make these 12 and negative 12, then they'll be opposites. What would I have to multiply the top equation by to make this 12y? 4. What would I have to multiply the bottom equation by to make it a negative 12y? Negative 3. Okay, so one's going to become negative, the other one's going to stay positive, but then when we do this, they'll both be opposites of each other. So let's take a look. The purple one. If I distribute, I get 12x plus 12y equals, anyone know 9 times 4 off the top of your head? 36. Okay, now go to the second equation. Distribute that. Negative 15x, negative 12y, and negative 3 times 10 is negative 30. Okay, so at this point, you can pretty much ignore the first 2 equations. We've changed both of our equations. Do we have opposite coefficients? Yeah, our y's are opposites right now. So what we can do is we can add these 2 equations together. What is 12x plus a negative 15x? A negative 3x. What is 12y plus negative 12y? 0. It goes away. Bring down your equal sign. 36 plus a negative 30 is 6. Okay, we've eliminated the y. Now what? Divide. We're going to divide by negative 3, and we get x equals negative 2, and that's your x value. Now you have a choice to make. Now we have 4 different equations. You may plug that x value into any of those 4. So I would probably go back to one of the originals just because they're smaller. I'd probably go right here and say 3 times negative 2 plus 3 times y equals 9. So negative 6 plus 3y equals 9. We're going to add 6. So 3y equals 15. Divide by 3. So y is 5. So your answer is the point, negative 2, 5.
I got it open.
Just in the nick of time. Questions on that?
No.
Is the bell gonna ring?
Can you just put that on?